Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the West End Imps show. Slightly different setting for me this afternoon. Just had to double check. As always, joined by Chris to discuss the Charlton game. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Morning, mate. I'm very well. Are you?
Yeah, slightly hungover, slightly full of regrets, but you know what? We'll move and try and talk about the football. Right, Charlton then. They were below us in the table, Chris, when we kicked off. But probably a game where you probably take a point from, given the size of the club and the resources that Ben Garner's got at his disposal.
Yeah, I don't think a point's a disgraceful result, to be honest. Not a massive amount to talk about in terms of the match. But yeah, I think you're right. You know, they're a big club. They're probably disappointed with where they are. I should imagine they were expecting to be finishing at least top half, top 10, I would have thought. But yeah, you know, it was for me it's a point gained rather than 2 points lost or 3 points lost. It could have been worse, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, obviously there's not a great deal to go into because not really a lot happened over the 90 minutes. We'll start with the team then. Obviously, Danny Mandroyu, as we now know how to pronounce it. He came into the starting 11. Obviously, impressed us all at Bolton last week. That was we were still playing the five at the back, which for me I wasn't too sure whether that was the right idea. But you know, he stuck with it, and well, it's another clean sheet. But do you think the five at the back was the right way to go about yesterday?
I suppose it's one of those that's easier to criticise or comment on with hindsight. I don't object to five at the back or 3-4-3, 5-3-2, whatever, you know, 5-2-3, whatever it is. I don't object to that. I think it's probably for me more something that I'd like to see away rather than at home. I feel like we should be a bit more aggressive on the front foot at home. So I thought, you know, I think it was a very tactically astute thing to do at Bolton away, despite the 2-0 defeat. And we've done that. And it was two mistakes that led to 2 goals. Otherwise, it's 0-0, job done. So I was a little bit surprised. I thought we'd go back to a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 kind of variation on that system. But I think he's probably wanting to just get a little bit of defensive sort of stability and solidity into the side so that we can maybe push on a little bit more confidently. I find the problem that we have in that system with the 3 or 5 at the back is we don't really look that creative in the final third. And that was pretty evident yesterday. You know, we were really good defensively. That's the positive. But I don't think we really crafted, apart from Mandroyu's shot, towards the end of the first half, I don't think we created a great deal. So, yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence, I guess, but I can see why we are adopting that. And I think Mark Kennedy came out afterwards and said it's something that we're looking at possibly more of. But equally, what I really like is that we have that flexibility to move the shape around and move the formation and the positions around. So it's a position that we should be grateful to be in with the players that we have and the squad that we have and people coming back from injury.
Yeah, obviously we didn't keep too many clean sheets at home last year, so any clean sheet is a good one for me.
Yeah.
You could tell what Charlton were doing, couldn't you? Sort of in the first half, they were playing really long balls into Jaden Stockley and Miles Leaburn, who I thought Leaburn, the number 33, to say he's only 18 and 6'5", he's a bit of a unit. Played really well, actually, I thought, for someone of his age. Charlton, you could tell they were playing long balls into the pair of those two and looking to, you know, they have the likes of Scott Fraser running off him. Some really good players. Charlie Kirk as well is no slouch at this level. So you could tell what Charlton wanted to do. However, you know, like you said, we sort of stopped in the first half. Not a lot really I can think of that Rushworth had to do in particular. But as the half grew on, Chris, we didn't really want the half to end, did we? Because we sort of were on the ascendancy right towards the end. And I think the reason for that was Jack Diamond. Jack Diamond just took the game by the scruff of the neck for about 5-10 minutes before half time and caused Charlton all sorts of problems, didn't he? Obviously, he ended up in the shot from Danny Mandroyu.
Yeah. I think it was... You can't fault Charlton really because they've got those two big lads up front. You know, they've got to play to those strengths, and they're a good pairing. I've always had a love-hate relationship with Stockley. I don't think he's a very good footballer, but I think he's a good striker and finisher, if that makes sense. But them as a pairing, and when we were kind of 5-10 minutes in, you think, this is exactly why Kennedy's gone 5 at the back. Jackson's sort of strength in the air to try and hold them off. We didn't win a lot defensively, but we were picking up second balls. We didn't give them. I mean, I don't remember them having a kind of chance first half really. So we matched them. I think the difference where we were better yesterday compared to Bolton in that system was that we weren't getting overrun in the middle of the park. I thought Virtue had a particularly good game. And I thought Sanders, and then when Tashan came on, it didn't feel like we were going to really be threatened. And like you say, as the half grew on, we were kind of thinking another 5-10 minutes in that half and we're probably getting a goal, because we were really becoming more aggressive. We were trying more. TJ on the right particularly was playing as a right winger really, which gave Mandroyu that opportunity to kind of come inside a little bit more. But it was a game for the defenders, I guess.
Yeah, and the second half is almost not even worth speaking about.
It just followed a very similar pattern, didn't it?
Yeah, it was just. I wouldn't say it was rubbish. I just think it was very boring. And that's not to criticise Mark Kennedy or anything like that. I just think that Charlton came, their game plan completely counteracted ours, and two teams just evened each other out. So, I mean, I suppose the only thing of note that happened in the second half, Chris, was that we saw the return of Conor McGrandles and Jack Payne, obviously both coming on. Conor got booed, which I'm not too sure. I think the lads, the guys who are where we sit in lower 4. The guys above us were very much clapping him and thanking him for what he had done for us. But the 617 decided to boo. I joined in with that boo. What were your thoughts about Conor McGrandles coming back? Because it was quite a sour taste when he left us to go to Charlton, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because once a player's left, that they've left, and that's it for me. They're no part of the club any longer. We have soft spots for ex-players, the likes of Harry Anderson, Matt Reed, all of those kind of players through the sort of National League and getting us back into League Two. But for me, I think that partly the McGrandles situation was of our own making in some respects, because I don't recall him ever saying he was going to go back to Scotland. I think some of our fan base said he'd said that, and I can't recall him actually saying that. And I mean, football is a transient. It's a business of transients, isn't it? They're always going to be 2-3 years moving on, 2-3 years moving on. And I think whilst he was our player, couldn't fault him. I think he was an exceptionally professional player. He always was a 7 to 8 out of 10 pretty much most games. So I don't really have any grudges to hold against him. Whilst he was with us, he was good, and now he's gone. I got no beef with him really. I'm just pleased he didn't come on and do anything that caused something to happen for them. In the same way that I'm pleased that when Jack Payne came on, he didn't nick a goal or create a goal. So. It's booing players is not for me, whether they're our own or opposite, ex-players. I'll boo players if they're on the opposition and they're arseholes and deserve to get booed. But McGrandles for me, it is what it is. He's gone. That's it really for me. No further conversation to be had.
And to wrap up then, this quite short episode for us, because we normally go on for at least another 10 minutes or so. Man of the match. I'll put my nomination out first. I thought Regan Poole was man of the match for me. Just really good in terms of blocks again. Really good one-on-one tackling again, which we know these levels that Regan can get to, don't we? Regan is certainly a Rolls-Royce defender at this level. And yesterday, I don't think he had any issues. Airy Lee wasn't fantastic against Stockley and Leeburn, but they're both absolute units, and that he's going to struggle. But I thought on the ground, on the floor, brilliant. His passing was fantastic. He moved the ball into the middle third whenever he could. So for me, it was Regan. I don't think you can not give it to a defender. So I'm assuming one of the back 6 is going to get it for you.
Well, I agree with you about Poole. I thought Jackson kept Stockley pretty quiet and did a good job on him. It's going to be very hard for any defender to win headers, particularly against the other striker, Lieber. You know, he's a giant of a man. So I thought Jacko played well. I thought O'Connor played well. I thought TJ played well. And TJ was my first name that I thought as I come out the ground, but actually having slept on it, I think I'd probably be inclined to give it to Virtue, just because I think he was the one that was, particularly first half, trying to drive us forward. And he's a very gifted footballer. And I think in that sort of double six role with that formation, you know, he was the one that was trying to craft and create. So I'm going to go with Virtue, but it could have been any of the defenders, I think, because defensively it was a very solid performance. And I think the final word for me on the match is, as probably a few people have said, is, you know, better to draw than lose. And again, clean sheet, but unbeaten at home, you know, and I think that's a really good positive to take, bearing in mind the sort of last year, certainly, and just home performances were not at it. And I think we're starting to build a little bit more on those home performances. And, you know, it was a boring as hell game. There was very little to talk about, but we're unbeaten at home and it was a clean sheet. So I'll take the point and move on. And I'd imagine it will be a very similar formation on Saturday at Ipswich.
Yeah, so that's now 5 unbeaten at home, which I think, you know, given that our home record ever since we got into League One has been pretty poor, so I'm sure we'll take that. Anyway, that does wrap up another episode of the West End Imps Show. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers towards the end of 2022. We have recently hit 650, so massively appreciated everybody that has dropped us. So it's massively appreciated. But yeah, Nat, everything that I think that's everything, Chris, isn't it? But anyway, we'll see you next week. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.